What's up, everyone? Welcome to Modern Craftsman Monday. I'm pretty sure I'm so used to doing this on the midweeks now. And then we switch things up, and then Nick and I record sometimes. I don't know what day this comes out, but I'm pretty sure that it's Monday. Um, Today, it is just me. I sat down with Jordan Smith of Smith House Co. So, Jordan, I've known for a handful of years. We first met when he was working for Matt Reisinger, which was his first job in the residential building area, residential building market sector, probably better than area. Um, he comes from an engineering and a manufacturing background, and he wanted to start his own business and figured that would require a little bit too much capital to self fund. So he decided that he wanted to go off on his own. Reisinger stepped in, hired him, and then he eventually did end up leaving and going off on his own. I've known Jordan for a handful of years. He's very involved with the residential building science, content creation, YouTube, just a really good personality, super knowledgeable. Him and his wife Veronica have a design build company. We talk about a new business venture that he's looking to get into within the residential building market. If you guys don't know Jordan, you should know Jordan. You can check out, again, his company is Smith House Co. And I think his personal, I want to say personal, it's probably not as personal, but his business business personal sounds weird. Sounds like a mullet. His account for himself with the business side of things is Jordan Smith Builds. I worked with him at MT Copeland. I've known him a while, but he's a really good guy, a really great personality. I always enjoy spending time with him, but we get into a little bit of a tear towards the second half of this podcast where we are just cracking up talking about some people that we've worked with over the years. So you have to excuse that. I started laughing pretty hard there for a minute. But as always, I enjoy the conversation with him. I hope you guys too do as well. Nick is out of town this week. I'm out of town next week. So we're doubling up on some episodes to keep things moving along. So we appreciate your patience there. Homeowners are asking for more and more glass in their homes, more views, more sunshine. And this means larger windows and more expansive doors to bring the outdoors into their spaces. Sometimes it can be hard to know which windows can meet your dimensions. At AndersonWindows.com, they have a fast and easy tool called Find My Size. You can find it in the For Pros section of their website. Enter your dimensions, and Andersen will tell you within their standard sizes which window or door styles and which series will meet your opening. And don't forget, Andersen offers custom sizes as well, and that information is linked in the Find My Size tool also. So visit andersenwindows.com/pros. That's Andersen Windows, ANDERSEN Windows.com/pros for all the product information you need to ensure you're ordering the right windows. If you've tuned into the Modern Craftsman recently, you know we're big fans of Buildertrend construction software. They've got the tools you need to work simpler, impress clients, and drive growth. But what is it that really sets Buildertrend apart from all the other tech options we have as builders? It's their support. They understand that learning new processes, let alone a whole new platform, can be intimidating. That's why their team does everything they can to make it as simple and as seamless as possible. One of the best ways they get customers up to speed, it's their live trainings available for all customers. They have a calendar jam-packed with tutorials where a product expert walks you through how to best use each feature. Don't waste time fumbling around and wondering if you're doing things right. Get in the system, get what you need, then get back to your day. Buildertrend makes it that easy. To learn more, visit buildertrend.com/MC support. That is buildertrend.com/MC support. Dude, what's up?
Not a lot. How you doing?
My kids got me sick. Other than that, I'm all right.
Oh, that's not fun.
Dude,
Kids are
they're the worst.
people with kids have the best, immune systems known to man.
I don't know. I feel like I just get sick all the time from
Well,
them.
you do get sick, but, like, you get sick off the really bad stuff that would kill most people, like,
Yeah.
because you are constantly bombarded by all the I mean, it's straight off the bus, man. It's
Yeah.
the good stuff.
Are your kids back in school already?
Yeah, they are. They started Wednesday.
Yeah, we got like another week and a half
Yeah,
of
that's nice.
the terrorists being home. No, they're at camp all summer, and then we go on vacation at the end of summer. So we'll have a week with them,
Yeah,
and then we get back, and they basically head right to school.
nice. Where y'all going to vacation at?
We try and go up once a year to Cape Cod. We have some friends
That's
up
nice.
there. Rachel and I have been going there since college when we met. We used to go in the fall, which was really nice, like September. But
Yeah,
damn, kids ruining everything again. Now they
I
have school. We
know.
can't leave because they have school.
Yeah.
I
Well,
would
they're
sell them
almost
if
getting
I
old enough to
could.
where you can just drop them off, and then, like, we'll be back in a week. Your grandparents might pick you
Yeah,
up
I'll
today.
just leave them with like food and water, like the
Exactly.
dog.
Exactly.
Yeah, you guys are good. Just get one of those bowls that as you eat it, the food comes out more.
They're like cats, you know, they're much you just leave some food and water out, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
They may run off, you may not see them again, but, you know, they'll take care of themselves.
You guys can just stay here and get yourself sick. What's up with you guys? Nothing? Building a cool
Nothing.
house,
No,
I
I mean,
see.
we're blowing and going on the building side again since MT Copeland, I'm no longer doing the MT Copeland show.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so we picked up another few remodels and doing that big design build out in Weimar, Texas, and have another new build on the way. So
So for anyone who is unfamiliar with you, um, who are you? Who do you work for? What do you do?
yeah, my name's Jordan Smith. I work for a company called Smith House Company, and we came up with that name because our last names are Smiths, and we build houses, and we are a company. So you know, clever, and we could remember it. So Veronica and I own and run our own building company, focusing mostly on design builds, design new, and then we've started getting into some fast turn remodels as well. But that's what we that's what we do.
And what do you mean by fast turn remodel?
Well, we just did a remodel in Steiner Ranch. So Steiner Ranch is a I think you'll see this all over the United States, but we're in Austin. We went crazy. Like during COVID, everybody and their dog moved to Austin. It was already a boom town, and it just went even crazier. And property prices went insane. So there's some properties around, some neighborhoods around that were built about 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago in the 90s, early 2000s, and they were nice spec homes, but they're spec homes, so they're not, you know, real nice, but in that world of spec homes, they were more quality spec homes. Well, they're 20 years old now, 30 years old now, and maybe you bought it 5 years ago and you said, okay, I'm spending $400,000 on this house, but what I really want is that $800,000 house down in the next neighborhood over. It's still the same schools. We really like the schools. We really like the area, but we want that $800,000 house. Well, in the last few years, your $400,000 house has turned into an $800,000 house. That $800,000 house has turned into a $1.6 million house, and interest rates are, you know, above 6%. So now you're sort of stuck. You've like,
Yeah.
it's great that I've got all this equity, right? I've got sitting on $500,000 worth of equity in my home, but I can't move. And so we're taking that equity through HELOCs, home equity line of credits, and turning it into the ability to renovate the home without touching that original mortgage. So you're not having to refinance at this crazy high interest rate. You keep your mortgage the same, and you just pull out enough money to do the remodel. And then what I meant by fast turn is what we're learning. We make our money we're cost plus, right? So we say this is how much it's going to cost, and we're really thorough on our budget. So it's not a guess. We're usually plus or minus 10%. We're usually plus 10%. We're never
Usually.
minus
Yeah.
10%, but we're at or slightly above that 10% contingency. And when we think about projects where I was like, oh, these big projects like that one you're talking about with the 8-acre pond, I mean, that's all in, that's a $3 million project. And that you think of that as being like, that's where the money's at. And it's really fun. I mean, I'm so blessed to be able to do that kind of work, but they take so long. I mean,
Yeah,
we've
people
been
don't
working with
realize
that.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been working on this project at least 3 years. So $1 million a year over 3 years, you're basically at 80 grand a month burn rate on that project. A $250,000 remodel, we can move them out, completely gut the house, rebuild it, and move them back in about 8 to 12 weeks, depending on how smooth everything goes. But we're trying to get for each of our jobs $125,000 burn rate per month. And it doesn't matter whether it's a $3 million project or a $250,000 project. If you get it done in that amount of time, then your velocity, your revenue stays the same.
Yeah. So what are the scope? I mean, is the scope generally the same, or on those projects are you looking to kind of keep the same footprint and then just remodel and freshen the house up? I mean, that seems like a very fast turnaround.
It's an incredibly fast turnaround, but to your point, the exterior stays. I mean, we don't for that 2 month turn, we don't touch anything on the exterior. Now,
Yeah.
windows and doors, but the windows and doors aren't really exterior. Like we're not as from the window outside, that's not any additions, any structural, especially in Austin, and I'm sure where you're at too, but the permitting is just you're not doing anything fast with permitting.
Yeah.
So if you don't move any structural walls, if you just change fixtures, and we move fixtures, a few foot one way or a few foot the other way, we'll add walls. We find ourselves adding walls more than taking walls out because this was all built in the big
Yeah.
open floor plan concept craze, and so you got these big boxes, and there's a lot of good things that you can do for usability of the home by adding a few strategic openings and walls. So we don't do anything structural, we don't do anything on the exterior, but we do touch every surface of the house, and so the inside feels like a new build.
Yeah. I didn't really. I mean, I guess that makes sense that there is a pretty, and there will continue to be a pretty decent market for those larger scale remodels. For the listeners, you like breezed over that, but essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is these people bought these houses at a decent rate. The home value went up outside or within Austin and then outside of Austin. So now their home value is assessed for much more. They didn't pay that much for it. So in turn, they have a bunch of equity in the house. But now with interest rates up, home prices around them being more expensive, they can't move and upgrade houses because realistically, they wouldn't be able to afford the house they were in today's market. So in
Exactly.
order to get that better house, they're pulling the equity out of the house based on the new appraisal, and taking a loan and renovating that house without having the increased finance rate, with the mortgage rates and interest rates that are up so high. Um, that's what you meant by that, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. That's our game plan. We do move them out. I think that's a key to it too. We don't do
Yeah,
any renovation in place because that's just, I don't
slows things
know.
down a lot.
It slows things down, and it's not fun for them, it's not fun for us, it's not fun for our trades. It's just like, and we work with them to get a short-term rental in their neighborhood so it doesn't completely disrupt their lives. But eventually I'd like to get have the business buy a few homes in these neighborhoods that we're working in, and just be able to have a short-term rental that is completely booked by our clients. And so that would take another headache. That was, this first one that we did in this neighborhood that we're targeting. Their biggest complaint of the whole thing was it was a pain trying to get that short-term rental because nobody had a 2 month window. They had 2 weeks, and they had a week, and they had 3 weeks, and so they kept having to bounce from house to house to house. And they said that was the most stressful thing of the whole experience, which is a win from, my perspective. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, if we weren't the thing that was most stressful for you, then that was a successful remodel. But we would like to be able to provide that last bit of service to our clients to where it's really turnkey.
I'm realistically though, if you made a family move with like kids from house to house to house every month or every few weeks, you could pretty much do anything to them and that would be less stressful.
That's true. That's true.
Like
So
I we moved
maybe if
once, we moved once and almost got divorced. And it's like, dude, if you every 3 weeks, I don't care, you could like take my family hostage without me. I'd be like, yeah, like it was tough, but it wasn't as bad as the moving.
so if I'm hearing you right, we should leave that experience in there
And you can
because
do
that's
whatever the
on
hell
them,
you
right? That's
want.
not us. Like we should take that out, make them move from place to place to place. So when they get back, anything is better than what they just experienced.
Yeah, it's all about perspective. Look at you. This is like what's that stuff called? Tapatio, Topo Chico? What are you
Topo
drinking?
Chico, man. It's the nectar of the gods.
Yeah, I had that when I was out in Austin with you.
Yeah.
I feel it's like a now I feel like it's a hipster drink around here.
It's
It's moved its way
overpriced. I mean, it used
east.
to they always tell you, don't drink the water from Mexico, and then Coca-Cola bought Topo Chico a few years ago, and the price went crazy, and everybody's drinking it. I'm like, whatever happened to don't drink the water from Mexico? It says like right here, it's like bottled in Mexico, bottled at source. But
It's like seltzer though, right? Not
it is
flavored
seltzer. It's
though?
delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the only time I had that, when I was out at MT Copeland filming that stuff with you. So you're not working with him anymore. Done.
Nope, not working with them anymore.
So that's given you more time to devote to Smith House. Has your wife been working
Yeah,
or
she
just
she
for you
works.
guys?
Yeah, no, she works in the company with
Yeah.
me. So yeah, we're
So now it's full gas back with Smith House. So what else do you guys have lined up?
we're doing this Weimar project should finish out the big one with the 8-acre pond should finish up around April. We have a new build that we're bidding right now. That's just a straight. It's not a design build. It's just a straight new build. And honestly, we're spending a lot of time revamping our branding because I don't. This is sort of in process talk right now, so it may not be completely coherent, but we're wanting to have Smith House still be the halo brand of like if you want high end design build custom tailored homes, this is who you call. These fast remodels, I mean, if you're following my Instagram, you'll see I didn't post anything hardly on it. It's not bad work. It's work that I'm proud of and that the family is ecstatic with. Our clients are ecstatic with it. It's just not very sexy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's suburban house turns into a less sucky version of a suburban house. I mean, they like it. I'm glad that we're able to do it, and it's it's a good business,
Yeah.
but it's nothing that is anybody's going to call you up and be like, oh,
I
we'd
saw
love to
what you
come do
did
a
there. Yeah.
yeah yeah we'd love to
We
come do
saw what you
this
did to
this
this. No, I also feel like I don't know. I don't work on a lot of these houses, but I don't feel, at least in our area, the 90s were not the most amazing time for architecture and building. So it's a tough house to work in the like if you're looking to button everything up 110% and like really have something that you can showcase, 90s homes are very difficult to do that in.
so difficult. I mean, when we made it night and day difference, they had this weird. They love sheetrock in the '90s, and like they have all these alcoves built
Oh
in for like
yeah.
at 20 foot in the air for some reason at the entryway, and so it had all of that. The stairs were slightly crooked at the end. We straightened those out. It had a bunch of crooked walls that we straightened out. It's just a lot of simplification and going back to a little bit more classical architecture. The outside of the home isn't that bad. Like it was in Dallas, especially, they got to doing those super steep witch peak roofs that are like, I mean, they're just dumb looking. This doesn't have that. So the outside's not that bad, and we made the inside way better. And the home. The homeowner said the quote that I liked from him was like, "I hated my house so bad, In fact, we were going to build a house for him. That's the only reason we did this house in the beginning. This wasn't part of our business plan. He had bought a lot pre-COVID out next to Lake Austin, and he had a plan, and he's like, will you build it? And we said yeah, and we were working through it. And then COVID happened. He's in mortgage, so he called me. He's like, hey, we think everything's about to blow up, we're putting the house on hold. And I said, I understand. Fast forward, somebody offered him stupid money. He made like $400,000 more than what he paid for the lot, so he sold the lot, and now he's sitting on this house, and he's like, I hate my house so bad, but prices have gone crazy. I don't want to spend a lot of money somewhere else. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remodel this one to make it bearable, and then we'll move out in a couple of years, right? Well, we did the remodel, and now he's saying, I didn't think this house could be like this. We love it so much. We're going to stay here till our kids are out of high school. Their kids are like fifth grade and eighth grade or something like that. Like, we're going to stay here now till the kids are out of high school. It turned from a 2 to 3 year plan to a 10-year plan. I just didn't know that this house could be like that. So I'm really proud of everything about it. But like I said, it's nothing that is a what I'm used to. And when we talk about high end carpentry or anything, you sort of gotta sort of do good enough. Not,
Yeah.
I mean, the same trades that we bring in are the same trades that we do on the high end stuff, but it's just like, you got to know where to stop on a remodel. You do this all the time. I mean, you're the expert in that, of like, I'm doing up to here,
Yeah.
and from here on, that's your house.
You have to
From
turn a
this side
blind
over is my
eye.
responsibility.
It's tough. I mean, it's like a constant battle. I mean, the biggest struggle I have with that, which would be indicative of what I'm experiencing on my current remodel, is like the ownership, right? Especially when you're in these houses that aren't necessarily the most well-built houses. And it's like, my scope is within this space, but there's a certain amount of ownership that you have outside of that space, whether it's the roof and the windows above it, and wall intersection adjacent to it, and issues that could creep up where it's like, I don't want to do all this work in this space and then have an issue with a roof or a skylight or a window or a flashing above it. So a lot for me is the ownership of not only that space but what we have to protect, because if I finish a space and I put new floors in and there's a leak, from a window that's coming into a wall that's above that like that wasn't within our scope, I still own that floor, and I want to protect myself and protect the customers. So navigating that is the toughest part for me. A lot of times, like, I don't want people to hear that and be like, well, it's just your house is ugly on this side of the wall. It's like, you have to own some things that you didn't necessarily sign up for, and like balancing that with what you're getting paid and then getting your work done. It's proving to be difficult on my current job.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easier than others.
Do you ever run into issues with any code of like bringing stuff up to code? That obviously, if you're doing full gut remodel, that's one thing. But like, where do you draw that line of like, this this that I'm putting in is up to code, but this that I'm getting into isn't? And what's your rule of thumb for, we really need to have a conversation with the owner about bringing everything up, or we're just going to leave it as is?
Health and safety. Even from like basically everything in New Jersey that I do is permitted. Even if we're opening up a space and not changing anything structurally, they want to ensure that what's in the walls is okay, that it's up to code. And when I say up to code, it like remodel code is different than new construction code. For example, if an addition was built and the roof framing is not adequate for today's insulation standards, they don't make us spray foam in there to meet that requirement. They were allowed to put bad insulation or blown in as much as we can fit in that. So it comes down to discretion, inspectors. A lot of times it's health and safety, where if there's something that's going to be a health or safety issue or a problem down the road, we'll bring it up to code. But remodel code it doesn't require us to fix something that was built up to code when it was built, unless it's going to be an issue because that code was insufficient or is now insufficient.
Yeah.
So it sometimes it depends on the municipality, but a lot of times it's more of a discretionary item. Um, I'm more of the mindset. I work in a ton of old homes, so a lot of times it's like if it's lasted like that for 150 years, I don't want to start tearing shit apart, because as soon as you touch one thing, it leads to another thing, to another thing, to another. It's like pulling apart plumbing. As soon as you go to unsweat one piece of pipe, it screws up the joint next to it, the joint next to it. So it's like, just leave it be. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it usually winds up being health and safety, fixing stuff that is just grossly done wrong, or could be an issue down the road, or it's like, hey, we have this wall open up. A lot of times on remodels, we'll take stuff back so that when they pick up with another part of the remodel, they can then tie into it at that point, like cast drains and stuff like that. It's like, we have this wall open,
Yeah.
let's bring it with PVC, or ABS, that they can then tie in when they remodel the kitchen below that, so that we're not screwing them for down the road. But it comes down to budget, what people want to spend. On the job I'm on now, it's a lot of ownership, water issues, and like, we can't move forward without fixing what we're running into. So there's not much of a choice, which makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Austin has a weird, not a weird rule. It's just a arbitrary rule. They say if you're remodeling more than 50% of the house, then you have to bring everything up to code.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's tough.
well, well, guess what? Everything that I do is under 50%. It's like, that's what I was
Yeah,
like, I didn't want to raise my hand. We just did a clinic with the Austin code officials. They did this, here's how you can work with us better, which was really great. I was really appreciative that they did that. They handed out their cell phone numbers and stuff. So like, they're trying, right? But also, I didn't want to raise my hand and be like, putting a target on my back of a bunch
yeah,
of like, they're going to start showing up for everything. But like, how arbitrary is that? It's like, 50% of what? Like
yeah.
50% of the surfaces, 50% of the value. Can I just say inside and outside? Like that's 50-50. If I don't do anything outside, that's the outside 50%. And I can do anything I want on the inside because that's the inside 50%. Like it was a strange, it sounds good, but it's
It
like so
does.
simple that nearly anything you do, you can get away with like, well, that's less than 50%.
Yeah, I mean, that if you hear that initially, it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It would have to be, a fairly large renovation. But then when you really dig into it, what does that mean? Like, how are you going to gauge 50% during a renovation? It doesn't make that much. It would be hard to
Yeah.
quantify that.
Yeah. So Veronica, she's the classic rules follower. She's like, well, she's asking all those questions. Like, no, it's inside out. For me, it's inside outside. I don't touch the outside. That's the outside 50%. We can do whatever we want on the inside and not bring everything up to code because that's the inside 50%.
Works for me. Um, that's an interesting model, though. I would assume that will. I don't do a ton of. I guess the projects probably aren't big enough, but I don't do a ton of projects that we're securing or helping customers secure financing. I did when I first started in business. They weren't HELOCs though. A lot of it were they were different type of finance. Like, people would buy a home and then they would get financing to renovate the home, and then they would have inspections on it. I can't think of the name of the loan off the top of my head, but it I didn't like the way that it was structured. I didn't feel as though it protected me enough. The way that you got paid and the scope of work, and it was too convoluted for me, and I did a couple of them. It was a 203k loan. I did a couple of them, and one was even for friends, and I just it didn't protect me enough. Like, there was too much gray area as far as what you were getting paid for, and the contractor is responsible for developing the scope. And when I looked at the end of the day, it was like, I don't know, it's too risky for me. Too many headaches. There's not enough like paperwork beforehand, and the people don't know what they're signing up for and getting. It's like, I don't really want to do that much anymore. But I typically am not part of the process securing financing for customers, but I would assume that like what's going on with you is the same exact thing that's going on here, and there's no property left for people to really be moving anywhere anyway. So what I would assume is that's how people are going to be lending money, because there's going to be less mortgage lending.
Yeah, so the HELOCs, well, 2 things. I'm not a HELOC, I'm not a mortgage or a finance professional by any stretch, but
Really?
the
I feel
guy,
like you
this last
look like
remodel I
one
did,
though.
that's what he does for a living, right? So
Yeah.
he does real estate financing, and he said that the largest players of HELOCs in the United States don't play in Texas because Texas has a weird protection for the consumer that if anything is messed up with how the loan was written, that the mortgage company forfeits their right to the property. Like the homeowner gets it outright. And I don't know all the nuances and stuff, but it's a big enough deal that most HELOC players in the US don't do Texas. So Texas has their own HELOC companies that just service Texas because they know all the ins and
Yeah.
outs. But the second thing is HELOCs are super easy from the builder standpoint because it's the owner's money.
Yep.
Like it's just like from my standpoint, it's just like they're paying cash, right? The bank says you owe $200,000 on your house. We estimate your house to be worth $700,000. Here's $500,000. Literally, not as a check, it's a draw system, but you don't have to, it's not like a traditional finance deal like on a new build that we're doing where you would have to tell the bank you have to submit the draw and they send an inspector out and they make sure that, oh, this is really done to blah blah blah, and then you know all of those steps that you do on a normal financed deal. This is just the owner's money, so the owner's more at risk. You know, we have very fair, thorough, understandable contract. So I feel like our customers have a good understanding of this is what you're getting charged for, and this, you know, we do a good job of it regardless of whether a bank's involved or not, making sure that we're never too far out ahead of the project on draws that they feel like, oh, I hope they finish up, or on the flip side, we're never using our own cash to finish their jobs, right? We always keep that line pretty tight between the two. But from the builder standpoint, there is no hassles with HELOCs. I mean, you submit the draw, and as long as you have a good client that pays that draw, you just keep rocking and rolling.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's similar around here. Basically, the you have a closing on the loan. They want to ensure that whatever your intended renovation is, that there will be equity in the house. Most of the time, it just comes down to square footage and bathrooms,
Well,
like
that's
comps.
what's wild about this loan, the HELOC, is that you could use this money for whatever you wanted. Like you
Yeah,
could go out and buy a $500,000 boat if you wanted to, because the bank's looking at it like you have enough equity in the house today without doing any improvements. You have enough equity in the house today that if you don't pay this, we take your house, we sell your house,
yeah,
and we recover our loan. And we don't care what you spend the money on because you're going to be paying these stupid high interest rates, right? So they're just looking at lending however they can. And like you said, the mortgage market is pretty locked down right now.
yeah. It's not going to get better for a minute either.
Yeah.
Um, I think that we took out a HELOC on our first house when we went to renovate our kitchen, and it was the same thing. Like we had essentially could take draws on it, and then it was a reduced interest rate for like 2 years, and if you didn't pay it off within 2 years, then the interest rate went up. But it wasn't anything astronomical. Um, and it was the same thing. It was like we're going to give you up to X amount based on what the appraised value of your home is, to ensure that again they had collateral against the loan. And then we just like had a checkbook from them where it's just like pay whatever you want for whatever you need, and then pay down that loan until the interest hits. Um, but I don't I don't get involved with a lot of that. I think my customers now had to go back. They secured financing for the project, and then had to go back afterwards and secure more financing with everything that we ran into. But it's like it's just one less thing that I have to worry about in the day to day
Yeah,
of doing that
we don't
stuff.
to be clear, we don't set up financing for our clients, but we do have banking partners
Yeah,
that that I can say like, hey, here's who we use for this. Like they can, as long as they pay for the project, I don't care where they get the money from.
Yeah.
But we do help them set up of like, here's a good way of paying for it, and here's the people who you need to talk to. We're also being really selective in our marketing. We're doing direct mailer marketing, and we're able to use a funnel to. I just realized that this whole time I've had this. I can shut that off.
What?
Nobody watches the videos, or do they watch the videos? If you're watching the video, you can see the all the right here,
Oh,
the
it doesn't
volume.
bother me.
Oh,
I
it's
mean,
actually an
I
overlay.
can
This is
see
just
that.
this is just a webcam that I'm using. I got that offline and I put it up there because it makes it look cooler. Like I got an expensive camera. It's
No.
it's
Seriously?
part, it's
It's
it's part of
my
this
iPhone.
backdrop. None of this back here is real either. This is all a green screen, and this is a green screen here. It just it makes me feel this mic's not real. I'm just talking
That's
into a
amazing.
laptop right now. Anyway, sorry.
I just saw your mic
Totally
move.
off topic. Um, what was I talking about? Financing. Yeah, I don't care where the money comes from. We set them up with our bankers, and they take it from there.
So where, like, this house that you're doing now, where are your leads coming from?
Yeah, so that's where I was going with that. So this house was a new build that turned into a remodel. It was so successful that we're actually using it's man, I'm gonna have to look up the name, but there's a website that you can get on, and it uses CoreLogic. CoreLogic is the name of the data the database behind it. But then there's all these other companies that will utilize, they'll take a what CoreLogic does is they know everything about everybody. Basically, they know the addresses, how much money you make, social security number, all of the public data, and it just combines that all together. Really hard to search through, really expensive to subscribe to. There's all these other companies that will come alongside, and they'll subscribe to CoreLogic, and then they'll sell you lists. So I can get on there. Again, I forget the name of the exact website that I'm using, but anyway, you can go in there and you can say, okay, I want to find homes in this zip code, and I want the people to be making over $250,000 a year, and I want their houses to be worth at least $500,000, and I want them to have over 50% equity in it, or whatever you want to put into it. And it just starts narrowing it down. And by the time you get down to 1,000 or so leads, you can just dial it into they're married, they're between this age and this age. Your ideal customer basically that would fit what you're wanting to do, and then do direct mailers to that. Direct mailers have such a better return on opening than email or any other type of marketing, because you get something in the mail, you're going to open it up. You may throw it away right
Yeah.
away, but you're at least going to open it up and say, oh, it's and because what we do for a living is address specific, right? We're building a house that's at an address. It's like the best type of marketing that there is, because we're mailing it to that house that hits all of our criteria. And then, especially with our HELOCs, it doesn't pre-approve them, but if we use a certain criteria that the bank's comfortable with, then we can tell the people, like, we're pretty sure based on what we can tell that you're going to be
We've been watching
approved
you.
for.
From what we can tell from outside your window, we're
Yeah.
fairly certain that you
Yeah.
and your wife, who work in this industry and make this amount per year, can afford this renovation. We've already ran the
Yeah.
numbers.
Yes, we've actually got somebody in the white van across the street with the paperwork drawn up.
That's
Just
nuts. I mean, essentially, that's what Google does, right? It's they
yeah,
take all your information and then sell it to companies like this, which is why
yeah,
Google's free.
yeah, exactly. And so that's a way that we're generating our future leads, because it's zip code based. Like with what we're doing right now with all these high end rural properties, they're super fun. I mean, they are fun, and we're going to keep doing them, but all of them are at least an hour to 2 hours
Yeah.
away, right? And that's a long drive if you want to be there every day, pushing it forward. So we're looking at sort of narrowing the scope of our geographical limits.
How far outside of Austin do you live?
Outside of city limits is about 2 blocks over, but like downtown Austin takes me about 20 minutes,
So
15, 20
you're
minutes.
close. I mean, most people who are like Austin's slammed right now. So most people who are moving to that area are moving how far outside of the city?
Well, all the new builds are happening probably 45 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic
Yeah.
outside. It's a weird city. It's not, it was never built to be big, right? It's nestled up against the lake, and it's just expanding to the north, and it's expanding down to the south, and you can't go any further west because you're up against the lakes, and then you don't want to go any further to the east. Sorry to my friends out in Elgin and Hutto, but like it's just farmland out there. Like if you're out there, you might as well go even further and be like College Station or somewhere where it's way cheaper, and
Yeah.
you know,
So
you're not really in
how did
Austin.
you end up in Austin?
Reisinger?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I lived out in I worked in Houston with, as an engineer. I started running a plant, doing offshore rigs. So we were building big jackup rigs that went out to the Gulf Coast and drilled for oil. And Veronica and I had remodeled and then built our own home, and we're like, this is what we like doing, this is what we spend our time doing. Let's just go do that full time. And about that time, I was following Reisinger on the YouTubes, and I came to Austin to an architectural tour and went to one of his houses, and he was there, and we hit it off. And he said, "Well, instead of starting your own thing, how about you come work for me?" So I said no. I was like, I want to start my own thing. But then I started thinking about, it. I was like, well, if you got somebody who knows what they're doing,
Yeah.
offering to teach you while you work for them, then
And then
sure.
you saw him in those jeans and you were sold.
Those jeans. He was actually wearing those jeans that day, and I couldn't. That's what sold me.
So, for the listeners that don't know, he Matt posted something. I think it was a picture, a video of himself, and he had on some fashionable jeans. They're very similar to what Nick wears. And I commented on the post, "How long did it take you to paint your jeans on?" And I'm fairly certain that he erased it or had somebody on his team delete that post from his page. But the jeans have been an ongoing joke ever since. So I digress from the jeans, but now you guys can check that out. So you had to have been doing all right working in that field, coming from an engineering background. Why? I understand, okay, we enjoy this part of it, but like you were just going to leave your career of 10 years and start this like pipe dream of a residential remodeling building company.
Yeah, we didn't think it. We didn't think it through.
Did you
In
have any
hindsight,
of
we would
your
have never done
17
it.
kids yet at this point?
We didn't have 14. We had three. We had three. We
So
didn't
you
have the
already
fourth.
had 3 kids when you did
We
this
already had
too?
three kids. Yeah.
Jesus.
So I've always been entrepreneurial, better or worse. I don't know whether I'm good at it, but I've always had the idea that I wanted to run my own thing. And in manufacturing, I mean, I ran a in the world of facilities, it was a small facility, but I mean, we did 40 million a year in production. Like we had three crews around the clock, and we were blowing and going. And that takes a lot of capital to build
Yeah,
something
you're
like that.
not that's tough first generation to be like, "I'm gonna start my own manufacturing company."
Yeah. Yeah. So so that wasn't an option. And Veronica's like, she had no desire at all to be a part of that. And we wanted to work again. In retrospect, hindsight's 2020. At the time, we wanted to work together. No, we do. We that's always been a goal of ours, is to work together. My joke is like working with your spouse is like I get up, take the kids to school, come home, get in the office, we argue, and then we start our day. That's just that's
Yeah,
just how
it's
that's
I mean, my wife had more of a foot in the business early on, and then it just got to a point where it's like, it's too much work, it's too hard. There's too many subtleties, and like you bring in stuff from outside the relationship where it's like, I'd rather just work with somebody I don't know. And then if they frustrate me, like after I leave work, I don't have to live with them afterwards. It's really
yeah.
tough. I mean, even
Yeah.
people working just with family in general, I have a ton of respect for. I cannot. It's me. It's not my wife, but like I still can't imagine working with my wife on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know. We do like it. Well, I can, but I can. It is a challenge. What I like about it is we're able to, especially with kids and stuff. Like we have, because neither of us are tied to a real job. Like we can schedule our lives. We have a lot of freedom in the way that we live our lives. Once the kids are in school, it changes a little bit. But during the summer, for sure. I mean, we're just, you finish up one job and you don't want to start one for a while. You're good to do stuff or do small consulting gigs on the side or whatever. So we really do like working together. And when we started the company, that was an expressed goal of ours, is we wanted to work together. And manufacturing was too expensive to get in. She didn't care anything about manufacturing, so we decided to get into home building. Reisinger offered me a job. I came to work for him running the steel and carpentry group. My background is welding engineering, and they had a really cool MF architecture boat dock out there on Lake Austin.
Oh yeah.
If you if you're ever on Lake Austin and you take a duck tour, you can go see that boat dock. We were I didn't sign any NDAs or anything. I won't say the name of the owner, but it's one of the funniest stories of the career while I was working for him. It had gone so far over budget. I mean, we were like, it was supposed to be 800,000 and we were like sitting around 1.2, 1.4 or something like that. It was not a good, financially. The project came out great, but financially it was just one thing after another was
And you
more
guys were
expensive.
getting paid for it. The customer continued to pay for it.
The customer continued to pay for it. It was cost plus,
Yeah.
right? So it wasn't there's nothing against Reisinger or his team, but it was just one thing after another. Like it was a much bigger project than anybody imagined. So anyway, we had just had this meeting with the client. It was very tense. Client, architect. I was there with the project manager, and we had that meeting, and then we got back to work. The client left, we get back to work, and we're up on this roof of this boat dock. And that, you know what a duck boat is?
Yeah.
Those buses that float, right? World
Yeah.
War II things. So that's where they put in, over there on the other side of the lake, is right next to this boat dock. So they put in the duck boat, and you can hear the tour guide's like, on your left, and he says, on your left you see a boat dock that is cost $1.4 million. Like he was to the decimal point right. And I'm like, who
And the the
so
owner
I'm
was
looking around.
there. With
One of the stupid kids that worked for me on the steel crew's like, yeah, I took a boat dock tour this last weekend, and I was talking to the guys. Like, I built that boat dock, and he
That's
like told them
amazing.
everything.
Oh, that's amazing. It'd be like, it
So
wasn't me. So how
anyway, so that's what I did. I did the steel crew for him, and then broke off, started my own thing a couple years later, and then we did MT Copeland in conjunction with their home building, and now we're full time home building.
so when you were working for him, you were doing more than just like you he started establishing or having you establish like your own social brand and all that, right? Is that where that like the impetus for that?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I didn't have before I worked with Risinger, I didn't have any social media. I was sitting on the toilet when I was an engineer, and I was on Facebook because that's all that was really around at the time. And there was a girl that I barely knew saying something dumb to a girl I didn't know at all, and she was saying something even dumber. And I'm like, y'all are both wrong. And I was about to comment about how dumb they both were, and I was like, wait a second. Nobody invited me to this. Like, this is, nobody
Yeah.
added me. I don't even think that was a thing at the time, but like nobody, I have, there's no reason for my heart rate to be getting accelerated right now. Like, I don't have to be a part of this. So I deleted all my social media, and I was out, and then started working for Matt. And he was like, hey, you really need to get a YouTube channel and Instagram. So he helped launch all of that. And to his credit, when I left, it all came with me. So
Yeah.
he, there was nothing tied up with the build show or anything.
Are you still feeding your YouTube?
I mean, I've got a bunch of stuff in the can that I
Yeah.
haven't edited. I don't have an editor. I really need to probably hire one. But yes, opportunistically, when something's really cool, I'll put it up there, but not on a weekly basis. And I
Yeah, I
like
didn't.
to, I should, but I mean, yeah, I mean, you're doing this, so you know it way better than I do. It's just it's a whip to,
Yeah.
every week have something to talk about, have video to show it, have it edited and get it up.
Unless you're paying, I
It's
mean, if you're paying somebody to do that full time, makes it a little. I mean, it's still there's difficulties. You still have the time commitment to shoot it and to like come up with what, but it makes it easier if somebody's taking care of that on a weekly basis. But it's
oh
still
man, yeah,
a massive
you've got
investment.
a team now. I think I got hit up by like 17 different modern craftsman
Did
people. Like
you?
Mr. Grace would love to have you on a show. And
Damn. Yeah, they were telling me that your email wasn't working. I was like, I don't. So we're on Slack, and I uh I don't really pay attention to it that much, to be honest. It's like that's all the social end of things. So usually I just hear it going off during the day, but then I came on, they're like, is this the right email? We can't get the email. So then when I asked Doug to send out the invite today, he's like, his email's not working. I was like, no, it's working. I talked to him again, but I'll double check. He was like, no, his email's working. So there was a
Yeah,
lot there's
I
a lot
I
of people involved.
transferred I transferred a domain from one host to another, and all my email blew up, which is tricky because you can't. I mean, I guess I'm not an IT guy, but anyway, you can't transfer it over before the domain transfers over, and it takes like 17 days for a domain to transfer over,
Oh,
and so like once it hits it, you got to switch everything over then, and yeah, so apologies to Doug for missing his email.
yeah, it's no problem. They got to sort it out. Yeah. So Nick is on vacation. I was leaving on vacation. They're like trying to double up on podcasts, and they were like, are you fine with recording alone tomorrow?" I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Well, who do you want to talk to?" And I was like, "Get a hold. You were my first. Like,
Nice.
I didn't even give any other suggestions. I just wanted to come on here and listen to your Texas accent talking about cricks and
Cricks.
trailers,
Still is the one that I
still
get.
and trailer."
Trailer, trailer, and steel. I get that. There's a guy, Castle Construction, that Instagram buddy of mine. Every time I say still, he texts STIHL. Still.
I like the
Like,
chainsaw brand. That's amazing. Um, Yeah, you were definitely the first person that I thought of to catch up with. I think the last time, I mean, I've spoken to you since then, but the last time we had you on the podcast was maybe at the Marvin booth when you were still working for Matt. So that was a long time ago.
that was a long time
Um,
ago.
yeah, and obviously a lot going on since then. If you're open to it, it could be very high level, but what was the reason for going off on your own after you were with Matt?
I had always said when I came to work for Matt that I wanted to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Again, whether that was the smartest thing or not, I don't know. But that's what I wanted to do. And then after 2 years, he was really starting to build the build show, right? Like when I started with him, I think he had 50,000 subscribers on YouTube, right? So he had grown, but in the 2 years that I was with him, he went from like 50 to 100, and then right after I left, it like blew up to 1 million. So maybe I was the problem. I don't know. Maybe I was the start of it. Maybe I was like, but
Yeah.
anyway, like I was right at that curve of where he really
It was
really
probably
blew
when the
up.
dude told on the duck boat told everyone how much the dock cost. I'm sure that's when it blew up.
That's when it blew up. Um, so anyway, he was getting he was trying to figure out what was happening with the build show. I was on the build show, and so he was trying to um figure out how all of that would work. And I just felt like it was getting too constrictive on my neck because it was Jordan Smith builds, and I felt like Jordan Smith was getting pulled in as there was a lot of preliminary contracts. No, but we didn't sign anything, but the talks were, to where they would have ownership in it and everything. And it didn't feel like something that was that I wanted to be a part of at
Yeah.
that time. So it was just a good, since I wanted to start my own thing, and it felt like they were wanting to do things in their best interest. I'm not saying anything did anything unethical or wrong. They just wanted to have some more paperwork signed about how this relationship would move forward, and I just felt like it was tying me to something that maybe didn't have a good exit strategy if I wanted to down the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah, that makes sense. It it's tough when it gets to that point. I mean, sometimes it's a necessary evil. I even know with Nick and myself and then John and parting ways and getting through that. Like we're still going through legal and like paying attorneys to sort out all of like still to this day. And it's cost a lot of money to do so. Where it's like half the time I feel like our brand partners are paying for our legal fees. Um, but it's been
This
it's been a lot, but it's like, yeah, thanks to all of our partners for paying for our attorneys over the years. Um, but I can definitely understand that. I feel like Nick does a really good job with like keeping it professional, be like everything's gonna go this way and through an attorney, and sometimes I'm just more lax where it's like let's just do it, whatever, what's the worst that could happen. um but typically if you don't have a good feeling or an exit strategy, it's probably the best bet. What about, so there's one thing that I mean, there's a few things that I wanted to talk about. Um, but one thing that I wanted to talk about, we were discussing some when I was out in Austin with MT Copeland, was when you had Mike Gurton visit you to build a deck at your place and how much fun you had with Mike camping in your driveway.
yeah. Yeah, no, Mike Gurton came down and built a deck at my property, and him and,
His helper.
Madison, his helper, came down, and they built a deck, and he did get a hotel. He ended up getting a hotel.
Oh, did he?
He did. He
I
ended
thought he
up getting
just
a hotel,
can't.
but that was not his first offer. No, Gurton was, because they were gonna come down to Austin, then they were gonna go camp in Big Bend National Park. And so he's like, I'll just stay in my camper in your driveway if that's cool." I was
So
like, "It's
he
cool with
does
me, I
he
guess."
does he live in Maine? Where does he
No,
live?
he lives in
Rhode
Rhode Island,
Island.
but I think he
Yeah.
just bought a place in Arizona.
Oh, really? I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
So for those who are not familiar with Mike Gurton, he does a lot of the trade shows. He was always involved with Fine Home Building. I think JLC. I could be speaking out of my ass with some of that. I know definitely Fine Home Building. But he was
Yeah,
just
and
like
JLC too. He did a lot of stuff with
he
JLC.
was like a Gary Katz type guy who was just very involved. A lot of exterior work, but he's like salt of the earth contractor. There's no frills about Mike. I mean, even in all of his Fine Home Building shoots where he's doing like any sort of dirty work, he has on a Tyvek suit that looks like it's 100 years old. Um, but I remember you telling me that you guys were bringing him down to shoot that for MT Copeland. He's like, "Is it cool if I just park in your driveway and camp?" It's like Mike Curtin's coming down. But you were saying that he had his young apprentice there. What was the deck system that you guys were using? I forget the name of it.
We did Kebony. Um, yeah, it was Kebony boards, which I really like Kebony. The clip system that they were using at the time, I don't think they're using anymore. I noticed that the last IBS show they're using a different clip system, and that, if I did a long term review of this, that's probably, the boards are holding up fine. The deck looks great, but this clip system, they just move laterally too much. Like you nearly have to put a screw through every board to keep it from moving left and right. And by the time you do that, it's like, well, why are we using a clipped system to begin with? I don't know. I just, the new stuff that they're doing now, I don't know why they switched over, whether it was that reason or not, but I know that they're using something different, which I think is probably a good move.
Do you remember the story you told us about the clip system and the stairs with Mike?
Ben Ben's gonna hear this, and then I'm
Just
gonna
saying,
hear about it.
this is like one of my key speaking points for the podcast. I forget if it was like you, Joey, Chris, myself talking about this. I was dying when you told me this. It's it's so much better if you know Mike Gurton too, But if
So
you don't, it's still pretty good.
yeah, so Mike Gurton, again, great guy, one of my favorite guys in the building industry, especially on the building and making content. Because he's like an original JLC from way back in the day, fine home building from way back in the day. But no, a New England, no
The filter, not super
no filter, no
refined.
tact,
Yeah.
just what you see is what you get. So we get, and we're filming. So it's during COVID, so it's a smaller crew, but there's still like, 3 cameras and it's sound. And so there's like 6 or 7 of us sitting out there in the yard. And because we're using Kebony, Ben, who worked for Kebony at the time on the marketing department, Ben Roberts, he lives here in Austin and he supplied the product. They were great. He comes out, he's like, I want to watch y'all film this. Like, yeah, come on. So he comes out and he's standing out there in the yard, and we have the whole thing framed up, and we get to the part where Gurton is snapping in, because this is a clip system. So it's got these plastic tongue that go into this groove, and you step on it and it clicks it in. You put one side in and you just sort of step on it. And and Mike's a smaller guy, he's probably 5'10" or so, and wiry, just not a big guy. And he's trying to force the board in, and he's sort of jumping on it, it's not clicking in. And he's like, man, he's like, I watched this online, and they had a hefty guy stepping on it, and it just snapped right in. And Ben speaks up, the cameras are rolling, but Ben's like, that was me. And Mike looked at him and was like, yeah, that was you.
So good.
He didn't say fat. He didn't
Not
say
even
fat.
apologetic, though.
Said,
Just owned it. Completely owned it. I remember.
Yeah. There was no walk back at all. There wasn't even a look of embarrassment. It was just a look of recognition. I'm like, oh, yeah, that was you.
You haven't missed a meal, huh? Oh my God, he's the best. I remember when he first got on. It's like again, I love Mike. But like I feel like there's an age where they need to cut you off social media. Or like they should have never, like my parents' generation. And Mike's probably a little dude, he's got to be close to my parents. How old do you think Mike is? 65, 70? Maybe a little young.
Yeah,
He's
he's
got to be
60,
like 65.
65, I think 65. I
Yeah.
remember when, and this is the way he thinks. I love this. We were building this deck together, and he's like, how old are you? And I think I was like 38 at the time. And I was like, I'm 38. And he stops. He's like, I could be your dad. Like, yeah. Like, yeah, of course you could be my dad. And he's like, man, in my mind, we're like the same age. He's like, we're the same.
I 100% believe that.
Yeah. It's just like, it blew him away that I was so much younger. He's like, I could be your dad. I was like, of course you could be my dad. Like, you're my dad's age.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like it's like our parents' age where they shouldn't be on Facebook, or they post, they share stuff that they don't intend to share. And I'm like, yeah, that I remember one time my father-in-law, he didn't have his own Facebook account. It was like, I guess when Facebook first transferred over, where it like just wasn't college students anymore, where everyone, like, Facebook first came out, it was just for people in college, and then anyone could sign up. And he would go on my mother-in-law's Facebook account and like creep through her Facebook, but didn't have his own account. And then at one point, like, somebody screenshot my mother-in-law's feed, and it was like, Carolyn Thomas likes party girls. She was like, Rob, no longer can you go on my Facebook account. So he had to get his own Facebook account. Which, like, he probably didn't. It's like when they send the email chain where it's like, send this to every one of your friends, or see who comments on your post to see who your friends really are, and they all fall for that and repost it. There's just like an age where they should be cut off from social.
Yeah.
And like, I remember Mike posting something at some point where he was like, I'm pretty sure supposed to be naked in a shower with like his tool belt on or something. It was something just completely inappropriate, out of line. I'm like, this is not what you should be using social for at this point. Um, I've had quite a few laughs with Mike. Love the guy, but he's definitely in his own world. I've seen him like on his page. I'm pretty sure he was like lowering himself into a well to do like a well repair on one of his properties up there. And I'm like, dude, I thought I did everything. Mike legit will do anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
He's a beast. Did I ever send you the I feel like I sent you the Photoshop of him as Marv from Home Alone. Did I ever send
Yes,
you
you
that
have,
picture?
but I do have that. I actually have that on my desktop.
Do you really?
It's just called and I don't this is like a third computer, but you know how you're when you get a new device, you
Yeah.
back it up and you re-upload it to the
Yeah.
so this is like the third laptop that has, for whatever reason, up here in the top right hand corner, it just says Afro Mike. It's Mike with the afro. And I'll never delete it because it makes me, I'll only see it anytime that my desktop's completely, you never actually see your desktop because it's always behind all your programs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got Afro Mike. And
I'm
yeah,
gonna I'm
I've
gonna
seen
have to
your Marv.
I'm gonna have to get Doug to post that with the guy Steve who used to work for me. Um, post it. I guess made that. I'm not that technologically savvy, but he took the picture of Mike with the afro and cropped Marv out of like him and whatever the dude from Home Alone's name is. Yeah, that's the picture. uh,
That's Afro Mike. He's on my desktop.
yep. That's sweet. Oh man, I remember he also posted something. Nobody's gonna care about this podcast. I'm sorry, but he posted
As long
something
as we're
where
catching up, that's all I care about.
one of his tenants or something was this old lady, and he put her in like a hard hat and was filming her while he was working on his house. And I was like, what is he posting this stuff for? And I'm pretty sure I screen grabbed that. That's in my list of Girton photos too. On to more serious stuff. We're not going to be too much longer here. But I don't think I had told you, but we bought some property. Rachel and I are going to
No,
end up.
I'm a hardcore stalker of the
Oh,
Grace family. So yeah,
sweet.
I know all about it.
Yeah, so we're going to be building a house, and I know that you've done a ton of like brand partnerships and stuff like that. So I wanted to pick your brain on how those relationships worked for you best, what you kind of found was the best format, as far as lining that up, not backing yourself into too content heavy production where it's like, all right, I'm trying to build a house, but at the same time I have to create so much content that I can't work and build my house, and I'm just trying to fulfill contracts. So like,
Yeah.
what worked best for you as you've kind of learned that process?
The best relationship that I've ever had was with LP, because I mean LP's a great brand, but I'm not plugging them here. I'm just saying the way that their marketing company worked. They said, you build the house, we'll send you the product. And I mean, it was like super lightweight stuff. I mean, I had to do something with Kyle Stumpenhorst, which was great because he's super cool. So like,
Yeah.
he came down and hung out. We did 2 shoots with him, but they took care of 100% of all the production stuff, right? So
Yeah.
they had their own camera crews came down. We were just talent for it, and it made it so easy because we had 2 weekends in the whole build that we were like, okay. And there was some staging that I had to do, keeping like, okay,
The
we're doing
propane cannon.
the propane cannon, yeah. We're doing the sheathing, and we're showing the framing stuff, right? So we want to see joists, and we want to see studs, and we want to see sheathing, and we want to see tape. All right, that's the four for pretend. And it was pretty close to that. And so I had to make the build be exactly at that stage when the crews showed up. So I had one wall, basically complete and ready for tape. And I had one wall ready for sheathing, and I had another floor without any decking on it at all, just showing the joist. And then I had another one just framed in. So there was a little bit of work there because
Yeah, like out of
the camera
sequence.
crew was just going to show up once and you had to show it all. But that was so much easier than, I mean, it's hard when you're like, oh, I've got to film this exact step because they're going to have a list. I mean, I saw their list. It was just dozens, maybe hundreds of shots that they needed to make all the content that they wanted, but it wasn't up to me to do that. I just had to provide the stage to do it, and then their production team was going through and checking it all off. So that worked really well. And then when we got to the finishing side, the smart side, same thing. They just wanted to show it in these 3 different stages, and I just made sure that I had spots, because it doesn't have to be a big spot. I mean, it could be a
Yeah.
12-foot wall or even a 10-foot wall in one spot that's at this stage, and the rest of the house can be at the next stage, or even the third. You can show it in a single shoot. You can show a bunch of different content, and then they get out of your hair and you just build. Otherwise, it slows the project down to a crawl.
Yeah, and like so that's I have a couple of partners that are on board for something similar. And essentially the agreement is product, and then also creating content around that, but like that they will fund the content creation, and whether we're bringing in um our production or their production is yet to be determined. We can work either way, but essentially they're gonna allocate X amount of budget towards product, X amount of budget towards content production, which is like a win-win for me, and also affords me the opportunity to be able to plant myself on the job during that time and not feel like I have to be going and working. Like that's going to be my main job. That's the goal, to be able to get enough of a window that I can plant myself on my own project and line up partnerships for product, but also creating like good educational content around it. I haven't had all the time in the world, believe it or not, to really line up the rest of the sponsorship that I need for the build. But the few that I have pitched that to are excited. I have a couple on board right now, and that's the route that I'm looking to take. Just to be able, it's too hard to be working other jobs and then try and do this on the side. It's like you have to be there for that.
Yeah, no, we did ours on a spec build, so that was easier, right? Because um that was a job for me, right? It wasn't my house that I'm building on the side. So
Yeah,
making it your priority and being able to be there, I think, is going to be real important. That made it nice too, because I was building the house anyway,
yeah,
and it made it, in that respect, it made it a little bit easier for LP to make the lift, because they donated, you know, the material, and then I just charged a for anything that wasn't for the house, like any appearances that I had at IBS or any video that we worked on that was outside of that, I got paid a different rate. But just like the house was, you give, if it's a big enough thing, like, okay, if it's Stabila saying, oh, we'll give you a laser, it's like, that doesn't work. But when somebody's
yeah,
like, we'll give you the framing, the siding, and all of the fasteners through their Tetra grip stuff and all it's like, yeah, we can play, because
yeah.
that's a significant donation, and for them, it's a way cheaper than having to come up with that same amount of money just to pay talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And it, I mean, the goal for me would be able to line that up in a way. We're just not there yet. We're still going through approvals and all that stuff. But that was kind of the angle that I wanted to take. And realistically, I have always enjoyed that end of things, and the educational and the teaching and then creating the content. And it pulls me away from the remodeling some, but I think that it does open up opportunities to be doing some other stuff and not killing myself as much. So I'm hoping that it's a transition and a bridge into more of the stuff that allows me to be doing what I want to be doing, not like banging my head against the wall on a daily basis.
Yeah. My one thing that I wish more people in doing what we do, of like, we are builders, but we're also public facing, and we show people what we're doing, and at some point, and you've definitely crossed over into this point of where you're getting paid to do what you do. And I think that, I mean, knowing you personally, your ethics are not only above board, but like probably maybe too acute. Like you're
Yeah.
you're anti corporate. You're
Yeah.
sort of rail against that. But like, one thing that bothers me is when people are building their own houses using product, it's like, I don't know how often you say the disclaimer. I struggled with it, right? Like I didn't know how, I don't want to bore people with everything. Like, hey, they give me all of this material now, because that like also takes away from like, well, would you use this material
Yeah,
if
yeah,
they
yeah.
weren't giving it to you? And you would. Like, you don't want to lessen the message of like, this is good product and I'm choosing to use it on my house. That's a huge endorsement in and of itself. But I also get wary of the influencers that like they just don't mention, they're like, oh, I'm using this and that, and like, being in the game, you know that like all of this is given to you. All
Yeah,
of it may not be sponsored, but like, you didn't pay for any of that pool, that deck, that's
%. Yeah.
none of it was what you bought, and you're not making it clear, at least from what little I follow whoever's doing that. It's just, I don't know the answer. It's just a fine line between like being transparent but also not taking away from the message of like, this is a really good product and they provided it.
Yeah, and like I guess the biggest concern with that is not necessarily within our network or within the professional realm, because I think that we should be able to see through. I mean, I guess I still there's things that you don't pay attention to, but like for the consumer, and as to like, it's really important for me, if we are using something, why I'm using something. And even it's funny because even a lot of partnerships that I have, where it's like they pay you to post something or they're paying you to create content, and I do like their product. It like, if it were between them and a competitor and they're the same type of thing, like if I have a better personal relationship with people in that
Oh yeah.
company, then it's like I would rather use that product. And maybe it's not even a decision based on the product, but the support or how the company has helped me. And I think that really serves me well, because I don't do well within authenticity, where it's like, you all right, so you want me to sit here, like I've done a few of these shoots with other companies, and it's like where I basically was hired as the talent, and they're
Hmm.
like, this is what we were contracted to produce, and they want you to say this. And it's like, yeah, I would use this product, but like it's more of like it was on the shelf when I went to go grab it. Like it's not that much different than any other product within the same category. And then they're basically they're feeding you lines and telling you what to say, and it's like I would rather speak to a product that I use, or speak to a company that creates a product that I use, and I have a relationship with that company. And like sometimes I use product because I know the support end is great and amazing, and I have like a personal relationship with those people, and that helps me be as transparent and as authentic as possible, because my, I don't know how many people have experienced it, but it's really fucking awkward to stand in front of a camera and like speak to something that you don't believe in, or that like even if you do believe in it, it's just a weird experience. Like you're
Yeah.
perpetually and indefinitely put on the spot while they film you. It's weird.
Yeah.
And then to be like speaking to something because they're paying you for it makes it even weirder, and I really struggle with that. So um a lot of the successful partnerships that I have are with companies that like I either have a relationship with the ad company behind them, where I've worked with them before, and we understand that we're like trying to make something um, that's going to be mutually beneficial to all parties included, and we're looking to make the best content as possible. Or
Authenticity.
yeah, like I love their product. I love the people behind the company. I love the people behind the ad agency that are setting me up with a company. And that's all really important to me. And it helps me be as authentic as possible, where it's not just like, oh, I'm selling this caulk brand because like they're going to give me a cut of every lead that comes through my Instagram account. Like I just rather not take that lead, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
That's a hard one too. Like, I've never successfully done well, I've stayed away from it. Just the I would rather get paid for the work, and maybe I'm leaving money on the table, but I don't do a lot. I'm not nearly into it as I thought I would want to be. It's just a lot of work that's becomes a full-time job.
it
Like,
is.
if your job is to be a product pusher, it it takes a constant flow of projects to be able to talk about products on, and then you that authenticity starts straining when it's like all you do. That education portion of it starts waning, and it's very much product based of like, hey, use this product, and like, why? Because there's like three other that do the same thing, that like, why
Exactly.
that one?
Yeah, I feel like we've always had the mentality of being more like this old house where if you can set up a partnership with a company or a product or a brand that you actually use or believe in, great. But I don't want it to feel like forced content. And I look back on certain things and I see them and it's almost cringeworthy where I'm like, yeah, that was a paycheck, but that's kind of it. And the mentality and the mindset moving forward really is to try and partner with companies that I want to work with that will they're on board with the educational aspect of the content creation, and then being able to work with people that can create really cool stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I know it didn't work out, but even the crap that we did with MT Copeland was like such a cool experience.
MT
Um,
Copeland, I mean, to give them a plug, they're still in business. So like, I'm not working with them, but it ended. This feels like a podcast of Jordan's failed jobs.
let's
Well,
actually
before
bag
I
this
got
one.
fired,
There seems to be a routine here. Save this one for a
um,
rainy day.
but anyway, MT Copeland's still a going concern. Great people over there, and what I really liked about them is I don't know whether they really had a business model of like, here's how we're going to make this profitable. I think that's what they're struggling with now. But um there was no it's going to be cheap, it's going to be a sellout, it's going to be like they did it right. I mean,
It's
the
well
the
done.
stuff that and it was fun to work. I mean, just they were just cool. The West folk that did all of our filming were just super cool guys. My stated goal when I was working there was that I wanted to bring all the cool people that I want to learn stuff from to come teach me how to do what they do. And then like if we can film it and show other people that's great too, but that's just gravy. Like the main thing is
Yeah.
I want to watch cool people do cool stuff that they've spent a career honing. And so that was really it was a fun time, and I think some really good content that's still up. So if you're looking for training, and this is not sponsored because I'm in no way affiliated, but go check out Tyler's painting course over at MT Copeland.
It is. I mean, all the stuff that we did there, first off, it was super fun. But all the stuff, like that was a huge learning experience for me, even how to like do things at a high level. Obviously with content creation on a smaller scale, you have to walk the fine line between like the return and your investment. But if you want to see like a really well produced video business model, like what they did is so cool. Like it's the cinematography and everything about that really cool, really great experience.
I
But
mean, for your course, we brought in that freaking crane. I mean, I
crane, yeah.
forget what we that was that was tens of thousands of dollars just for that piece of equipment to get
Oh
that
yeah, and then I had
overhead.
two operators and they had to like
Yeah.
get it there to like I would assume it was like yeah, easily tens of thousands of dollars.
Yep. And that was
Um
just that had no camera on the end of it. That had no like all of that was extra. Like that was just this one thing to get those shots that
yeah,
I mean, it's I there is not any content for the trades that matches that quality.
not
Again,
even close, no. It's like
is
TV
it a
show.
profitable business? So we spent a summer. So we shot all this, right? So they gave us money to go shoot great content, and we went and shot great content. And then the goal was to come back and get more money from the investors, and we'd go shoot more great content. Well, COVID happened, and then which didn't really slow anything down. That actually accelerated investment. People went crazy. But then June of last year or so, maybe the year before, I forget now, things went sideways in the venture capital world, and people weren't investing in online education videos. That was like the hot button topic, and then it moved on to crypto, and now crypto is no longer, now it's AI, right? So it's all moving. But at the time, it was online video content creation, and then everything sort of cooled on that front, and there was no more money. They weren't going to reinvest. They're like, well, now you have to figure out how to be profitable. So I spent a whole summer dialing for dollars, literally sat in this office with a call sheet, and I would call builders from coast to coast. I mean, I talked to some of your listeners on here, because I talked to, feels like, everybody. And there was three answers. The number one answer that I got was, we're small, we don't do that. Like, we're small, we don't train.
Yeah.
That was just, it's me and it's Bubba, and me and Bubba know everything, or they just not interested. Or two, it was, oh, we know your stuff, we love your stuff, we're using it now. That was rare, right? Because it's a small company just getting started. But it wasn't never, like, several times throughout the summer we got that. And then the third one was just like, stop calling. Don't call. Like,
Yeah.
who are you? Why are you calling? And the hang up. That was probably the most common. But if they at least let me get out the, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're trying. There's as much as I want education to be important to the building community, from my limited summer long try at selling great content. I mean, it's great content. So we built it, and then we went and tried to sell it. And I think that the most success that they're having now is with the big spec home builders. And that's great. I mean, I'm glad that somebody is wanting to educate and build better, but it's not who I normally, in my ignorant prejudices, I was always thinking, oh, it's the small guys that are trying to get better, trying to do
Yeah.
better, trying to. And as much as I want to run down the spec home builders, those are the guys who are actually trying to, mostly, maybe you can be cynical, and it's mostly for liability, like they're trying to not make all these lawsuits, or maybe codes pushing them, or whatever it is, but they're at least willing to invest in training their teams.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, we it's a shame to see that, but it would seem to be fairly indicative of the industry and the state of the industry, and where we are. And I would assume, like, I can only judge from my market, but everything is so tight with residential that, like, people just aren't willing to spend more money even if it betters themselves, because they're just getting chewed down. And, like, to invest not only in the content but then also paying people to digest that content. Our industry is very price driven, and the customer base just really, a lot of times, isn't willing to absorb any more of that cost. I mean, even as far as, like, health benefits and pay and everything else, people just, like, aren't willing to absorb that cost on the customer end of things, and people are always looking to lower their price and be more competitive. And until that changes, that it's going to be tough. But it is a shame. But that content is so sick. I've watched
Oh, yeah.
so many of the courses. There is not content that's better produced for the trades than that. It's like episodes of like a Netflix documentary that's very well done, or like those chef shows where they follow a chef and document what they do. Like, it's so cool. It's so well done. It's very well produced and not inexpensive to make. So I have so much respect for they're what they tried to do and what they're continually trying to do for that. So yeah, not sponsored, but definitely check out their stuff. It's still out there, and it's very informative, very well done, and I don't think that you'll regret checking it out. All right, Jordan, I think that's all I have for you.
Is that a wrap? We've talked Girton. We've taken a wild ride down Jordan's Feld career.
Yeah, I wanted to rub it in a little bit. I know that you're getting your feet wet and getting back into building and hitting it heavy, and I wanna just make sure don't get too big for your britches.
Yeah, yeah. Keep us humble.
Yeah, you
When
have
when
to.
are you coming down to Texas? Or when are
Dude,
you need to take me up when you start building your New Jersey mansion.
it's not going to be a mansion first off. Um, maybe 2,500 square feet. I'd love to get back to. I'd love coming to Austin. I've been twice, and I had so much fun both times. But hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah, don't come.
Too,
I mean, the summer
dude, it's too
sucks.
hot
I
this
wanted
time of
to move.
year. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know. I have to see. You have to get something going on, and we'll collaborate on something.
yeah,
You
yeah. We'll
know,
do it.
maybe when
We'll do a
Reisinger
collab.
has
I
me
thought,
down.
aren't y'all starting a trade show? Are y'all touring the country with y'all's trade show?
Not me. I don't
Not
do any
you?
touring. Maybe Nick. Nick's got his contractor coalition.
Okay.
Maybe that's it. I think they were just
Yeah.
down in Austin not that long ago.
Yeah, that's what I don't really follow many people, so I don't. I get
Nah.
rumors. Veronica tells me, "Hey, this is happening." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." I'm going to go watch hovercrafts on Instagram.
Yeah, that's pretty much my same thing. I'm in my own little like I work, I ride dirt bikes. I'm not like I feel like I'm pretty invested in the building industry, but I've created some healthy boundaries over the past couple of years that allows
Yeah,
me to pull my head out of it every now and then. But I appreciate you making some time to come on. I always enjoy spending time with you. It's been too long. It's been too long since
yeah.
we
Well, I
rode. What were
appreciate
you
you having me on.
driving? What
It
were you
was
driving me
fun.
around in? A Suburban? What do you have me
What's
driving
that?
around it with? What do you have me driving around in when I was down there? Suburban? What were you driving with all the tools in it?
Sequoia,
Tahoe? A Sequoia.
Sequoia,
Sequoia.
Toyota
Oh man, that thing was
Sequoia.
loaded up. It's like the
That's such
family
a beat.
slash work
We still
vehicle.
have it. It's the brown. We've got a new one, but that's our beater work truck. It won't quit. 250,000 miles.
Yeah, that's what Toyotas do, man.
Yeah, can't make a
Um,
cup holder to save their lives, but they can build an engine and drivetrain.
it's true. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Like I said, you were my first thought. Sorry that Nick couldn't make it, but at least I got to chat with you and kind of catch up on what's going on.
Yeah,
And if I have anything coming up with my build that I think it makes sense to bring you on with, maybe I'll pick your brain about that moving forward. I'm not there yet with that. I'm still trying to get through approvals and this job that I'm on. So maybe we can
yep.
make something work.
Cool. I'd love to.
All right, man. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All right. Talk to you later,
All right.
Tyler.
Thanks.
Bye.